It's how we start the week. It's the morning update live on NTN. A special good morning to you. My name is Jessie Leonce. Today, the 26th of April 2021. We hope you are keeping safe. And this past weekend, I hope you enjoyed it. You got some time to rest and relax, observing the protocols and whatnot. We do have some updates from the Ministry of Health and Wellness to report. Of course, some new cases of COVID-19, most regrettably some deaths as well. We will let you know where you can get vaccinated this week. We know that the second phase of the vaccination campaign here on island is in full swing, so you are encouraged by the Ministry of Health and Wellness to get vaccinated as soon as possible. We will also be sitting down with an official from the Sustainable Development Department in the person of Legal Officer Kate Lewis, and she will be speaking to us on the Escazu agreement. Many of you will be aware that last week we joined the rest of the world in observing World Earth Day, and so we will let you know how these two coincide, where they intersect, and how you can get involved in the ongoing activities. Do stay with us. When we come back, we get into the meat of things, the latest updates from the government of St. Lucia. If you're joining us on air online, good morning to you, Facebook, YouTube, residents in St. Lucia, St. Lucians in the diaspora. We appreciate you. Thank you for keeping abreast with what's happening in your island home. Do stay with us. We have more on the other end of this break.
Here are ways to reduce your plastic bag use. 1. Refuse plastic and take your own reusable bags when you shop. 2. Reuse your single-use plastic bags when you shop until they are no longer fit for the job. 3. Repurpose your plastic bags and use them to line your trash can, paint trays, and more. 4. Dispose of your plastic bags by recycling. Shop wisely and reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle.
Thank you so much for staying with us. I did make a mistake there in speaking about our interview for this morning. Her name is Kate Wilson, Legal Officer within the Department of Sustainable Development, and she will be speaking to us on the Escazu agreement. Of course, we observed a World Earth Day last week, and she will let us know where these two intersect and how you can be part of the activities. But first, we get an update from the Department of Health and Wellness speaking to us on the new cases. They did put out a press release yesterday indicating that there are 6 new cases of COVID-19 to report. Now, this was out of a batch of 82 samples that were taken, processed on the 24th of April 2021. These individuals, as usual, they were seen at the various community wellness centers on island, the clinics, and they were asked to isolate. At this time, those who have been confirmed positive are being taken in for care, and of course also contact tracing is underway for these new cases as well. Confirmation was also received of 11 recoveries. 11 more people have recovered from COVID-19, and this brings the total number of active cases now down to 103. Thankfully, presently one of the active cases, however, is requiring critical care. Most regrettably, the Ministry of Health is reporting 3 COVID-19 deaths, COVID-19 related deaths, bringing the total number of deaths in country to date to 73. Death number 71 is a 61-year-old male from the Dennery district. Death number 72 is a 65-year-old female from the Castries district. And death number 73 is a 73-year-old male from the Viewfort district. Quite a coincidence there, death number 73 being a 73-year-old. All 3 of these individuals had underlying medical illnesses. The Ministry of Health, of course, also us here at the GIS, commiserate with the loved ones and family and friends of those individuals who lost their lives. As of April 23rd, 2021, a total of 23,941 individuals received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 392 individuals have so far received their second. If you want to get in on the vaccination, you've read, you've satisfied yourself, you've picked the brains of the health officials that you've been able to speak to so far, you've gone online, you've researched, you know you want to get vaccinated, you can do so today at the Suffolk Hospital grounds and also at the VG Sports Complex and the Dennery Mothers Preschool. Tomorrow you can get vaccinated vaccinated. That's tomorrow, Tuesday the 27th. You can get vaccinated at the Philip Marsley Grounds, the Darren Sammy Cricket Grounds, the Grand Riviere Human Resource Center, the Jack Mill Wellness Center, and the T. Roche Miku Wellness Center. There is a full schedule on the Ministry of Health and Wellness's Facebook page. You can go there and see where your schedule fits in with the days and the venues that have been indicated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Remember to take with you a form of identification and carry some water. You know how these things go. You may be waiting a while depending on the volume of individuals coming in to get vaccinated. Please take note of those vaccinations happening today. We want to get into word from the Minister for Health and Wellness, Senator the Honorable Mary Isaac. She has indicated that the recent drop in COVID-19 cases is attributable to an increase in resources provided by the government of St. Lucia. And we did hear from the cabinet of the plans for this fiscal year to increase the budget for the COVID-19 response. She says the dedication of healthcare workers and more importantly, the collective response to the protocols by the general public has also helped in bringing those numbers down. We go to our first clip of the morning coming from Senator the Honorable Mary Isaac.
Over the last few weeks, we have seen a steady decline in our number of new COVID-19 cases since the upsurge we saw in January and February. This is due to your support to the efforts of the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the government of St. Lucia by observing the protocols, washing our hands, wearing our mask, and social distancing. The road to get here has not been an easy one. The Command Center, the Ministry of Health, and the government of St. Lucia had to make some tough decisions in putting strict protocols in place, especially a stricter curfew over the recent Easter weekend. We know that by our very nature, we are a sociable people, and that sacrifice over Easter was not an easy one. It has now been just over 14 days since the Easter period, and based on the observed declining trend in the number of new COVID-19 cases, the actions we took at that time to limit the spread of COVID-19 is paying off for our country.
Honorable Mary Isaac is urging the public to continue adhering to the protocols to keep the nation safe.
Our goal is to get our nation's active COVID-19 cases to under 50, and we know we can decrease it even further with your help. This will allow us to reopen more sectors that have been affected by the implementation of the needed public health measures. As a government, we continue to monitor the COVID-19 situation and look forward to the steady drop in the number of new and active COVID-19 cases. We must thank the public for their great sacrifice that contributes to the success in the management of this pandemic. Thank you for practicing the protocols and helping to keep all of us safe.
That was Minister for Health and Wellness, Senator the Honorable Mary Isaac. We continue with updates this morning from the St. Lucia Consulate in Martinique. They are preparing to host an investment forum for French investors. This is the first ever virtual investment forum. It will focus on presenters from St. Lucia who will speak on the various potential sectors of investment on the island, how to do business in St. Lucia, also potential partnership with export-ready companies, as well as discussions on the existing options of merchandise and freight transportation between the two islands. Consul General, we have Johanna Salton. She says this is all in an effort to stimulate economic growth consistent with the intention of the cabinet and also development between Martinique and St. Lucia. The forum is scheduled for Wednesday, that is this week, Wednesday, the 28th of April, 2021.
We are doing it in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce here in Martinique. They are partnering with us. As a matter of fact, they're hosting a one-month-long trade show on the Caribbean, America, Africa. And of course, I jumped in and I decided, okay, let us speak a little bit about investment opportunities in St. Lucia, especially now as we're looking for ways to re-stimulate the economy, because we all know what COVID has done. And so this investment forum really is a way of presenting investment opportunities to those out there, not only in the French territories, but I think the wider region, because being the fact that it's virtual, it means that it is open to any and everybody.
The forum is part of a month-long trade show that is being hosted by the Chamber of Commerce in Martinique from the 6th to the 29th of April and will focus on the Caribbean, Europe, North America and Africa, where entrepreneurs, investors and business persons can discover promising markets, benefit from expert advice, expand their business network and identify support mechanisms to develop their international presence at a lower risk.
We have Ms. Alana Lancico from Invest in Lucia, who would be speaking about the various investment opportunities that are possible in St. Lucia. We also have a representative from the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ports, Energy and Labour. And of course, they are going to be focusing on renewable energy. We in Martinique have gotten quite a few, we have quite a bit of interest in renewable energy, people wanting to set up companies in St. Lucia.
That was Joanna Salton, the Consul General in Martinique, for Martinique. The event is 100% digital and numerous conferences and workshops have been planned with simultaneous translation in English and in French. We are due for a break. When we come back, the government of St. Lucia is promoting the development of affordable and clean renewable energy alternatives, an action which will aid in meeting the Sustainable Development Goal number 7. And we will be speaking to legal officer within the Department of Sustainable Development. She will be speaking to us on the Escazu agreement and St. Lucia having signed on, what this means for the island, and of course how it coincides with World Earth Day, which was observed last week. Do stay with us.
Yeah. What does coronavirus have in common with love? Both are highly contagious. Spread love, not the virus. Like you, COVID-19 loves a lime. Beach, river, or fed. Coronavirus is like these people who track every lime just to invade. The best way to put off invaders? Cancel the lime. Spread love, not the virus. Keep you and your crew corona-free. Live to lime another day.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join revolution.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
St. Lucia ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek an chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique la fait wolo parler en place publique kon bol en main base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds hod yon a lot I ka travay tan si ou senti ko pa cordial quarantine ko pas en contact et puis l'autre en cas où te toi pe exposé c'est un écouye free 11 ou ben n'importe clinique yo pou les pays a dimi à clé ça veut dire les supermarkets pharmacie et puis ATM yo accessible avant c'était souhait pays à clé en plein ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver ve min corona. Si nou tout sevi jidla a tout le.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the Morning Update live on NTN. We're coming to you from the GIS studios, bringing you the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. The government is promoting the development of affordable and clean renewable energy alternatives, an action which will aid in meeting Sustainable Development Goal number 7. During the budget presentation we had about 2 weeks ago, Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney announced a number of measures to be implemented as part of a national strategy aimed at reducing fossil fuel dependence and improving St. Lucia's overall competitiveness in the energy sector.
In this regard, I am pleased to inform honorable members that LUSLEC has secured the resources from Abu Dhabi Fund for Development to allow the installation of a 10-megawatt solar farm with 6-megawatt battery storage in the Trumase-Mikud area. Also, during this financial year, Mr. Speaker, an allocation has been made for the installation of at least 100 kilowatt or solar PV systems and 10 schools across the island.
As part of efforts to promote energy efficiency, the Prime Minister says audits will be conducted at 40 schools on island and lighting retrofits of over 6,700 fluorescent lights will be changed to LED in these schools.
A similar exercise will be undertaken with respect to our street lights, most of which will be replaced with LED lights, thereby resulting in further energy savings. Mr. Speaker, to assist with the maintenance of our PV systems, the government has embarked on a program to train and certify a number of PV installers and inspectors so as to support and encourage the use of this form of renewable energy.
Honorable Alan Chasney says consultation will also begin on a proposal for the introduction of energy efficiency legislation, which will provide guidelines and promote efficient energy utilization. Well, that's the end of our updates for the morning. Time now for our interview for today. We have in studio with us the legal officer from the Department of Sustainable Development, the person of Ms. Kate Wilson. A special good morning to you.
Good morning, Jesse.
Wonderful. We're here to speak about, well, you're here to speak about the Escazu agreement. We just observed a World Earth Day. Tell us about how, first of all, what is the Escazu agreement? Quite an exotic term. Give us a definition for that, and also how it intersects with the World Earth Day observance.
Thank you so much, Jesse. First of all, before I delve into that, let me say how privileged we are to be given the opportunity to use your platform to continue the conversation on the Escazu agreement, which is so important for St. Lucia. So the Escazu agreement, the actual name of the Escazu agreement is the Regional Agreement on Access to Information, Public Participation and Justice in Environmental Matters in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now it's quite long-winded, so it's shortened the Escazu agreement. Now the reason why it is called the Escazu agreement is because on the 4th of March 2018 it was adopted and endorsed in Costa Rica after 9 rounds of negotiations. It was adopted and endorsed at the town called Escazu in Costa Rica. So hence the name.
Okay, wonderful. So tell us about this treaty. What is its objective in terms of the environmental protections and human rights in our part of the world?
Certainly. Now, the agreement, as we said before, has 3 components.
Okay.
It has access to information, public participation, and the access to justice. Now, let me give you a little background on the agreement, and then we'll get into the 3 main pillars of it. Round about 1992, about 168 to 178 countries met in the capital of Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, for a conference on sustainable development. At that conference, these countries felt unanimously, they agreed that environmental matters at a national level, because it was cross-cutting, it affected everybody, not only on an island, but across countries, that it should not be dealt with by governments alone, that it ought to be dealt with through the collaboration of all stakeholders, and that civil society, the public, ought to be given a seat at the table, at the decision-making table. Now, again in 2002, during what was called the Rio Plus conference, the whole issue of access rights came up again, and a document which was called The Future We Want was prepared, and again access rights was top on the table, because at that 1992 conference, the one previous to the 2002, there were 27 principles coming out of that conference, and the 10th principle became widely known as Principle 10. And it was on that premise, Principle 10 dealt with access rights to information, public participation, and justice in environmental matters. And so building up on that Principle 10, we had those rounds of negotiations which led up to the regional agreement.
You speak about civil society involvement.
Yes.
Speak to us about the significance of that. What is the agreement and the policymakers around that hoping to achieve by engaging civil society?
Okay. Well, you know, in any democracy, Jesse, for things to run smoothly, you ought, if you are going to make changes or you are going to create structures for your populace, it is always good. It is just basic good governance to have your persons involved. So you can get their opinion in terms of, say, there is going to be a project in the society that might affect their health, that might displace them. Okay, say, for example, their homes may have to be removed, so they ought to be given a seat at the decision-making table. And more importantly, that they should not be given the information when the project has ended or when the project has created some harm to them. They should be at all levels of the decision-making process. They ought to be consulted. Consult, consult, consult. That is the mantra at the Department of Sustainable Development.
Okay, and we know that that has been done quite extensively so far, but let's start at the top in terms of engagement with Cabinet, in terms of the Escazu agreement. Take us through that timeline leading up to engagement with civil society and the general public.
Okay, so first of all, the agreement, as I said before, the agreement, there were 9 rounds of negotiations. St. Lucia joined the regional negotiations at the 7th round in Buenos Aires in Argentina. The minute we did that, the Department of Sustainable Development then became the lead for matters dealing with Escazu. Of course, there are various other departments of government that deal with environmental issues, but we were given the mandate to deal with the Escazu agreement. What I mean by that is that the national focal point was housed at the Department of Sustainable Development. And so we needed to do a couple things. The agreement was coming, it was going to be opened for signature on the 27th of September 2018. So what we did, we embarked on a, before you can get an agreement in place or any treaty, you first have to consult the people. You have to there always has to be a sensitization process. Then there is also the legal process where we have to explain to the authorities why this treaty ought to be, why we need to sign, why we need to ratify this treaty. And we also need to give them an idea of what it is going to cost the government if we do go that route. You understand? So you also have to put sort of like a tentative budget as well. And then you present a cabinet memo, which has to go through our permanent secretary to our minister, and then our minister takes it to her colleagues in cabinet. So what we did, since the agreement was going to be open for signature on the 27th of September 2018 at the United Nations headquarters in New York, we began the first phase of our public awareness program. So we went out, you heard me with Chris Satney when we were here, Let's Talk a couple of years. So we went on the ground in the communities. We engaged the communities in Miku, all across the island. Then we went to the schools. We got the assistance of the Department of the Ministry of Education to go into the schools. So we started from the ground up. We went to the infant schools, we went to the primary schools, we went to the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, where we worked closely with Dr. Marie-Louise Felix, who is a professor teaching a very hands-on course at the Sir Arthur Lewis, course in sustainable development at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. So we tied it up nicely with the sustainable development goals. We have an officer at the Department of Sustainable Development, a section, a group of persons who deals with, they deal with the SDG goals. Okay. And Miss Volney, who is part of that team, came with me together. We went to Sir Arthur Lewis and we engaged the students. So that was the first part of the public awareness program. And St. Lucia did sign. Our Prime Minister was one of the first 14 countries to sign. So we are leading. So we did sign. St. Lucia also, so the second phase of, so after we signed, let me explain, even if we signed the agreement, signature did not place any legal obligations on the country. What it did was that it signified our commitment to not to do anything that is contrary to the principles of the agreement. In good faith, that's right. So we were not really legally obliged to do anything. But it was ratification that would now make it mandatory for us to put structures in place. So the second phase of the public awareness began. And so because remember I said that the agreement was open for signature from September 27, 2018 to September 26, 2020, 2 years. So as it was nearing an end, we needed enough time to go on the ground and to educate the public, to sensitize the public. Not only that, we needed to put certain structures in place, like the National Environmental Information Systems. You'd have heard, you'd have heard Daniel Gordon come and Tisha Jabatis speaking about that. So we needed to put structures in place before we got to the ratification process. So when we were nearing the end, then we started, as I said, we did the second phase, and so St. Lucia ratified. St. Lucia ratified the agreement on the 1st of December 2020. So now the agreement specifies, the agreement tells you how many countries you need to ratify before it can come into force. So the agreement stated that when the 11th instrument, that the agreement would come into force the 90th day, 90 days after the 11th instrument of be it ratification, approval, or ascension was deposited at the treaties office in New York. So now we have 12 countries. 12 countries have already ratified. So it's in force. Right, so it's in force. Last week, Thursday last week, I don't know if St. Lucians tuned in because we did ask St. Lucians to tune in. The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, UN ECLAC, they are based in, they are headquartered in Santiago de Chile, and they are the technical secretariats for this agreement. So they hosted, it was broadcast live on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, all across social media. It was International Mother Earth Day, and I will come into, and it was the official entry into force of the agreement. Now, on Thursday, what happened is that there were a series of sessions. There were 4 sessions for the day. The session was moderated by the Executive Secretary. The first session was moderated by the Executive Secretary of ECLAC, Ms. Alicia Bassina. And that was a high-level dialogue. That high-level dialogue saw prime ministers, ministers of external affairs, ministers of the environment, and other permanent secretaries discussing what it is, what Escazu means at that policy level. Okay, so that was the high-level agreement. The discussion, high-level dialogue. Then there was a musical interlude. We had a very renowned artist, musician from Latin America, who had done a lot of his work on the Escazu agreement and the environment. He highlighted some of his work. Then later in the afternoon, we had persons like myself, like national focal points, and persons who are on the ground doing the work. We had a discussion where we were recalling the road to Escazu. Each person was asked a specific question. I was asked about why, what attributed to the success of our campaign in St. Lucia, and I used that opportunity to thank, because I wanted to make the point, because you see, in September of 2020, there was a meeting was held from the 9th to the 10th of December 2020. That was the second meeting of countries signatory to the Escazu agreement. At that meeting, I went into detail as to what we did and all the things that we did. So I didn't want to repeat myself, because what I wanted to make clear on Thursday was that it was not an effort solely by the Department of Sustainable Development. So many different persons were involved in it? And that was what I used that question to answer. I wanted to, and I spoke, if you go, I'm not sure if it is on the ECLAC website, but because usually they put it up, even though they've broadcast it live, they usually have it on social media for maybe a month or so. But I used that opportunity to go through all the persons and all the various stages that we had collaboration with, so that you could see clearly it is not just a DSD, Department of Sustainable Development effort. It was an effort by the media, persons like you, Jesse. Without your assistance, we cannot do it, and we always want to thank you. So we had the media, we had because the bottom line of this agreement speaks to, it can only be implemented through cooperation, partnership, capacity building.
Now, which is why I want to ask,
yes,
how was the draft of the Escazu agreement impacted by the involvement of all these collaborators, not just on the national level, but the entire region?
Oh yes, the impact was tremendous, because first and foremost, it took us 9 rounds of negotiations to get there. Not only that, the agreement had to be put, you had to, because I belong to a legal team, there was a legal team, so that we, not only did we have to put it together so that it made sense legally, we had also to translate it, because the main language was English, but we had to translate it so that it made sense in Spanish as well, because the Latin American countries speak Spanish. And then you had some countries who speak Portuguese, so you also had to be sensitive to those countries as well. So we had to do that process. So it was a long process. Also, remember, the agreement speaks to protection for vulnerable persons and groups. We do not have that many indigenous groups left in St. Lucia. Of course, we have local communities like the Rastafarian communities. But in Latin America, the issue is a really serious issue. You have in Honduras, in Costa Rica, in Brazil, you have a number of persons who have lost their lives as a result of their advocacy for the environment. Not too long ago, you had persons who were advocating on behalf of the saving the monarch butterflies, and they were beheaded. Even when we were in Costa Rica on the 4th, on 2018, we were celebrating the anniversary of one of the ladies from Honduras who lost her life agitating. So it's a really serious issue in Latin America. So when we were negotiating, we needed to ensure that the agreement had provisions for protection for environmental defenders. So that was there. So we are proud to see that this agreement is our agreement, our regional agreement. It's not anybody from outside who came and did it for us. Yes, we had experts from the Aarhus Convention, and the Aarhus Convention is a convention similar to the Escazu agreement, but it's for the European countries. Okay. So we had experts come in to share with us what their experience has been in terms of the structures they have, like in terms of their funding mechanisms, in terms of their compliance mechanisms, and then we use that to see how we can create a structure that is uniquely Caribbean and Latin American, but that can work for us. You understand? Because if it didn't work for them, we would have to look now to see what is that is unique about our system that we can make it work if it didn't work in Europe. Okay.
So now execution. What is next for the Escazu agreement now that it has come into force?
Excellent. So once it has come into force, now we need to put the structures in place. And when I talk about the structures, I mentioned earlier about the NEIS, the National Environmental Information Systems. The agreement is very specific in terms of what has to be done at a national level. It talks about a pollutant register. So for the 3 main pillars, there are a number of things that you need to put in when it comes to access to information.
Because usually you have documents that are ambiguous, they don't get straight to the point. I like that you're saying it's very specific to what needs to be accomplished on the national level.
Very specific on the 3 tiers, the 3 pillars. Very specific in terms of what you need to put in, not only for information, but for the dissemination of information. It's very specific in terms of if you are deciding, say, the public authority that holds the information, if they cannot disseminate the information to the public, there has to be a recognized process where you can explain why. Why the information was not given, and if the information was arbitrarily given, what sort of recourse that the public has. It has specific provisions in terms of what should be put in place for the public and public participation. And it is very specific in terms of what should be done in terms of access to justice. It will take me a whole morning for me to talk about it. So, Jesse, we will be coming back. We will be engaged.
Be my guest.
We will be coming back, going to all corners to explain what needs to be put in. But more importantly, we need to look at our legal frameworks, our legal and procedural frameworks. So we know that the World Resources Institute,
yes,
they are on the ground. They had selected 3 countries, St. Lucia, Jamaica, and there's a 3rd country, to look at the laws. And I know a consultancy, I'm not sure if it is finished yet, but we are hoping that we will get the recommendations soon for us to know what we need to do in terms of our legal framework. So we will be working closely with the Legislative Drafting Unit of the Attorney General's chambers and the Attorney General himself, in terms of we'll be going back to them, we will be going back to the judiciary. We had met with the judiciary earlier last year. We had met with them. ECLAC had come down. We not come down. They did come down in December of about October, November of 2019, I think it was. And they engaged the youth. They also engaged various stakeholders.
Okay.
But because of the COVID situation, we did a lot of webinars over the web, virtual. So they helped us with our enriching the judiciary. We had a very, very impactful discussion with the judiciary, also with the workers, the St. Lucia workers, the youth. And as I said before, a one-off thing is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
We certainly, for us to have any concrete change and for implementation to be effective, we have to keep going back to those persons.
And has to become a culture.
That's
sort
right.
of. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is why I'm sure, maybe I don't want the public to say, well, I'm tired of seeing this girl on, and hearing from her. But, reinforcement. That is how you change. You change mentalities, you change attitudes by reinforcing the information. And by not only that, by letting them see how they can get ownership of this thing, how it ties into the everyday life.
Yeah.
So that is what we are going
to establish the impact, because you just connected sustainable development with human rights and environmental justice. I mean, farmers, the tourism sector, we are heavily dependent on our nature, our natural space here on island, and so just understanding that it needs to be protected at all costs, is definitely important. Any final words as we wrap up?
Yes, I just want to say to everybody, especially the young persons, the environment is something that affects us all. Biodiversity loss, climate change, all those things impact not just persons at the Department of Sustainable Development, not just the government. It impacts every single person. Look at COVID. Look at what COVID has done. COVID has reduced us. I mean, we should be grateful that we have a system in place that that keeps us that we can manage. It's the same thing for the environment. We need to recognize that what we do, the simple things that we are doing, impacts the environment. When you are driving in a minibus and you're drinking, do not throw your empty bottles outside of the window. Think of what happens to that plastic bottle when you throw it, when you finish drinking and you throw it. Now you have the OECS Replast project, which is going around the various communities and taking those bottles, recycling them, sending them to Honduras and sending them overseas for recycling. We can use those bottles to do other things. You understand? Also, we see what is happening with the styrofoam.
Yeah.
We have a new bill. So now we want to look for sustainable alternatives. You understand? So we have to, the environment has to be, it cannot be second nature. It has to be a part of our psyche, a part of our everyday life. So I'm asking, especially young persons, become a champion for the environment. I look at on Thursday. I don't know if anybody, who were watching the session on the youth. There was a session on the youth. And there was a young boy, I think he may have been about 10 years, and to see how passionate he was about the environment. We need that sort of thing. We need young people who are, because You and I may not be there tomorrow, but the young persons are coming. So when we talk about sustainability, we're not talking just for the present generation. We are talking for the future generation. We want a planet, a St. Lucia, that that is sustainable. So that we still have our forests, we still have clean water, we still have clean air. That is what it is. There's not much to it. Yeah. So let's all do our part. Okay?
Especially when it's our bread and butter, our economies rely on our environment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'd like to thank you so much for sitting in. I do know this is an initial engagement. We hope and we look forward to having you on much more in terms of continuing this conversation, because like you said, you could take you the whole day in terms of going over environmental matters. So thank you very much, Ms. Kate Wilson, Legal Officer within the Department of Sustainable Development, for speaking to us on the Escazu Agreement, the plans of the government of St. Lucia in terms of its obligations now in terms of meeting that agreement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Wonderful. Well, we've come to the end of this morning's update. We at NTN have quite a few things happening this morning. We encourage you to stay tuned for more programming. We have Investing Lucia, I believe, with their National Idea Pitch competition happening under Boost, their business incubator. So stay tuned for that as well, coming up later on today. My name is Jessie Leonce, signing off for now. Enjoy the rest of it. Continue to observe and adhere to the protocols. It's for your protection. If you're interested in getting vaccinated, go on to the Ministry of Health and Wellness Facebook page to let you know what days and times and locations you can go get vaccinated. Enjoy. Cheers.